LG is back and better than ever with the V40 ThinQ, a phone that's a significant upgrade over the awesome V30 from last year. While LG released some iterative updates in the V30S and V35 this year, the V40 is the true successor to that phone, sporting the same Snapdragon 845 and 6 gigs of RAM found in the G7 and V35, along with 64 gigs of storage and micro SD card support. While it's also got the same 3300 mAh battery as last year's phone, LG is citing better battery life thanks to better battery usage and other factors. All this despite having a larger screen. This time around, we're seeing a 0.4-inch increase in screen size, bringing it to a 6.4-inch notched OLED display on the V40 versus the standard 6-inch display on the V30. That's a taller 19.5 by 9 aspect ratio versus the 18 by 9 on the previous generation, matching it with the G7 ThinQ released a few months ago, only with the higher quality OLED panel. It's even got the same resolution as the G7's panel too, so this is a very sharp screen. It does have a notch up top, which is hidden by default, and actually looks hidden since this is an OLED panel, as well as a slimmer chin at the bottom. LG's OLED displays have improved significantly over the past year, and we're seeing the results here. Brighter and cleaner than ever, this is a great looking display all around. The body has gotten a bit thicker this time around, but for good reason. It's got the excellent boombox speaker from the G7. This is a really good resonant speaker that adds significant depth to audio when placed on a flat surface, especially something like a wood table, and just sounds great overall. The phone is shipping with Android 8.1 Oreo, not Android 9 Pie, but is likely the result of LG needing extra time to tweak its skin to cope with those new design decisions from Google. The phone ships with that same assistant key on the left side that you'll find on the G7 as well, but the big deal here is that you can shut it off completely if you don't want it, instead of just having to rely on hacky apps to work their magic. Much of the experience is an amalgam between the V35 and the G7, hardware-wise of course, but there's something significantly new here that's going to set the V40 apart from every other device this year. A whopping 5 cameras are on board for the show. Yep, 5 cameras, and while it seems a bit excessive initially, it makes more sense once you lay them all out. On the front is a return to the original dual camera setup from the V10, which featured a standard angle camera alongside a wide angle one. The V40 sports an 8 megapixel sensor behind the standard lens, while this wide angle lens has a 5 megapixel sensor behind it. This should give better performance and image quality versus the cropped wide angle sensor that LG has been using in the V20 and V30 on the front, and it's of course a larger sensor than what's in the V32, thanks to having a notch, just as LG did with the G7. The 3 sensors on the back are where the real magic lies though, and really what set this phone apart from the competition. LG has been the king of wide-angle photography for a few generations now, but there's one thing they've been missing when compared to the competition: a way to optically zoom into things. Digital zooming is alright for some situations, but nothing can replace what quality optics can do, and LG is hoping that 2x zoom telephoto lens on its new third camera fills the void. This is a brand new 12 megapixel sensor with 40% larger pixels, and it shares the same ISP as the main sensor, which means zooming in and out between these sensors is nearly instant. The main camera likewise sports the exact same sensor, outfitted with a more standard lens. While it has a lower resolution than the 16 megapixel sensors that LG has been using for some time now, it's got significantly larger pixels instead. A 40% increase in pixel size means low light performance is significantly better, especially with LG's glass lenses. It's particularly important that LG is using the same sensor for both regular and telephoto cameras, as it keeps the quality consistent between the two, and makes things all the better for content creators since that's who this phone is typically marketed to anyway. The wide-angle lens utilizes that same 107-degree angle used on the G7, which is not as wide as the 120-degree one used on the V30, but is still significantly wider than most camera lenses out there. Likewise, the same Sony IMX351 16 megapixel sensor from the G7 is used for the wide-angle lens, which means low-light performance will be worse than the main sensor, but the use of pixel binning means better low-light performance than the V30 in every situation. It's also on its own ISP, which is interesting, and you'll find out why in just a second. Check out the G7 review for an idea of what you can expect to see in regards to low-light performance improvements of this wide-angle lens over the V30. Aside from the massive hardware changes and the inclusion of a third rear camera, LG is also doing something really special with all three of these cameras. It can actually take a photo with all three cameras at the same time. Just how Samsung's Live Focus mode utilizes both cameras on its phone to allow switching back and forth between regular and telephoto lenses after the photo was taken, LG's camera setup allows the same picture to be taken from all three sensors at once, with the option to choose between any of these after the fact, as well as creating a little GIF using all three at the same time. That second image signaling processor inside was needed to make this possible, but this new functionality is only available when using that special triple shot mode. This is unfortunately only available for photos now as well, not video, but it is still a big deal to have the ability to do this in any mode. Video mode has received an upgrade to 4K 60 frames per second, and likewise, slow motion video is now a full 1080p at 240 frames a second instead of 720p like last year. LG is opening up pre-orders in the next few days, so keep an eye out for that. We're looking at around $800 for the phone, but it depends on carriers here in the US, so price may vary slightly depending on which carrier you get it from. This is definitely an exciting phone, probably a bit more so than the G7, as it packs in the changes that LG made on that phone, plus plenty of V-series specialties. We hope you enjoyed that preview, and will subscribe to us for regularly updated content. Chat with us on your favorite social media network, and don't forget to check out AndroidHeadlines.com for 24/7 tech news coverage. Thanks for watching, and until next time.